Welcome, I'm Suzanne Phillips. Thanks for joining me again on Psych Up Live. What if you could use 14 simple ways to improve your life with brain science? You can. In this show, Dr. Therese Huston returns to Psych Up Live with a new book, Sharp, a little book that can play a very big role in your everyday success. Across the age spectrum, people want to focus better. They want to remember more, and they want to unlock their full potential. Dr. Houston guides us. She's already done the research and captured what we need to know to be more focused and productive, often with 10-minute strategies. Whether you want to feel more effective at work, with family, or in achieving your personal goals, you will find her information incredibly valuable. Dr. Houston is a cognitive scientist at Seattle University, where she transforms good science into great strategies. She received her MS and PH.D. in cognitive psychology from Carnegie Mellon University and a degree in organizational leadership from Oxford University. She was the founding director of the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning at Seattle University and is now a consultant for their Center for Faculty Development. She's the author of 4 books. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, Time Magazine, The Guardian, and Harvard Business Review. Dr. Houston has led workshops and presentations to Fortune 500 companies, startups, and universities worldwide. Therese now lives in Seattle with her husband and their adorable Boston Terrier, who knows better than anyone who's really in charge there. Dr. Therese Huston, it's my privilege to welcome you back to Psych Up Live.
Oh, Suzanne, thank you so much. And what a generous introduction. I feel warm all over. That's so sweet.
Okay. So you always had the dream of applying neuroscience to real world problems, and this book looks like you did it.
I did. And you're right. I've had this as an ambition since the 90s when first was in graduate school. But my advisor warned me at that time, like, it's too early. Like, we are in the early stages of neuroscience. I think of it as like the Wright brothers getting the plane off the ground, right?
Okay.
Yeah, neuroscience was just trying to be safe and make sure it was okay to have people in the scanner for as long as they wanted. And anyway, we're finally at a point just in the past decade where neuroscience has really gotten to a point where everyday people can use it. It's not just good for patients, but we're finding out things that can improve everyday lives, just like yours and mine. And I was excited to bring that science and make it accessible because, our eyes can glaze over so easily when someone nerds out on neuroscience.
Right.
So I want to make it accessible, and that's what I've tried to do with this book. I'm pretty proud of it.
Well, the book is very readable, and you just can't help but looking at your next suggestion. Tell us how the book's divided, and let's start with a favorite point of yours.
So the book is there were 14 chapters, but there's a section on how to use neuroscience to improve your work life. And then the second half is about how to use neuroscience to improve your home life, improve your relationships, reduce your stress levels, things like that. And in terms of a favorite finding, gosh, there are so many good ones. I think one that was very life changing for me is finding out that we can grow new neurons as we age. What I had learned in graduate school 30 years ago, was that basically brain development stops in your kind of in your early 20s, and so I thought, oh no, this is the end. But what we're finding out now is that there's at least 2 key brain areas. One where you can actually completely add new neurons. It's like you can have miracle grow for your brain and sprout new neurons. And then there's another area where you can't add new neurons, but you can add new branches. So if you can imagine a tree that's really pruned back versus a tree that's lush and covered with lots of branches. And you can do that. And exercise is a big part of how you grow those new neurons or add more branches. And I'm a runner. I think you are too. But what this has changed for me, I was already a runner before I knew about the benefits of exercise for your brain. But now I try to run at least once a week, 40 minutes, because the research indicates kind of that's the tipping point, that you want to
Mhm.
get to 40 minutes to really get that miracle grow. It's called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. That's once you get to about 40 minutes, you really get the biggest boost in brain-derived neurotropic factor for your brain. So that's changed my runs. I now push myself a little harder rather than giving up
So
at
if
3 miles.
Okay, so if I'm a senior and I
Hmm.
like country dancing,
Yes,
or I can use that type of exercise, or if I like swimming, I can, the whole point is the exercise and your choice, and as you're saying, to try to expand it to a certain amount of time if you can. And you can always take breaks. But
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So it's about aerobic exercise. Lifting is good for other things or strength work, but aerobic exercise, think what's good for my heart is generally good for your brain.
Okay.
So getting your heart rate up for an extended period of time, and that could be swimming, that could be Zumba dancing, that could be
Yeah.
line dancing, right? And in fact, there's great research showing that dancing in particular is one of the best things to do over 60. It's kind of funny. I haven't retired yet, but I'm starting to get an eye for like, what do I want to do in retirement? And now when people ask, I say, I'm going to take dance classes because the benefits to your brain are
People love it.
huge.
Yes,
Yeah.
and people love it. So here's one thing that we have all succumbed to, and sometimes it's been described as a great thing, and
Mm,
that is multitasking. And you
mm.
you really address the myth of multitasking. Maybe we can talk a little about that.
It is. I hear people often talk with pride about how good they are at multitasking, or I'll hear in a heterosexual couple, the husband say, "Oh, she's so much better at multitasking than I am." And she, the woman in the couple sits up a little taller because she's so proud of her multitasking. Okay, I understand that, and we need to let go of that pride because the research indicates multitasking is really bad for you. So we can talk for a minute about how it's bad for your brain, but would you mind if I demonstrate how hard multitasking is? Because I think most of us think it's that we're doing better performance when we multitask, and I'd love to
Sure.
illustrate how performance actually degrades when we multitask. Okay, so people can play along as we do this if you want to play along at home. But what I'd love for you to do, Suzanne, is out loud, as fast as you can, count from 1 to 8. Go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Excellent. All right. And now I want you to say the alphabet out loud as fast as you can. Letters A through J. Go.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J.
Excellent. Okay, great. So what you just did was single tasking. You did one task with the numbers, one task with the letters. Now we're going to have you multitask. What I want you to do is I want you to say a letter and then say a number. So like A1, as fast as you can. Go.
A1, B2, C3, 4, 5. I don't know where I am.
That was a perfect
Yeah,
illustration.
you can't do
You
it.
can't do it. Yeah, everybody drops off somewhere around C
Yeah.
or D. It's kind of like, what's happening? So, what you just illustrated is that when we try to do two tasks at once, what happens is one task or both tasks gets much harder. We make
Hmm?
more mistakes. I'm sure, and you slow down, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
You don't know
When
what to think of. Which one, the letter or the number? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And you can feel the strain. You're like, this is hard, right? So the research is clear on this. Mistakes go up on average, and this is average, by 47% when we multitask.
Wow.
So if you're writing an important email to someone on your team and you're doing it in the kitchen and your partner or your kid is like chatting with you and you're multitasking, you're typing a little and you're listening and you're occasionally making a comment to the family member, chances are you're going to start making mistakes in that email. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Might be typos, might be you said the wrong
Yes.
thing. It's something that, or maybe you just don't use your filter, right?
Well,
To
since it's harder, you get anxious. And when you get anxious, you
exactly,
even add that to the pot, which really decays any kind of success. So
absolutely.
it's really a very good example of it. Yeah.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah, you start to feel anxious. Some research indicates cortisol will go up if you multitask for too long. And I think for me, one of the biggest concerns about multitasking is that what the research indicates out of Stanford is that if you multitask a lot, right? So let's say you're one of those people who takes pride in your ability to multitask, and the morning is full of multitasking, either at work or at home, but you've promised yourself in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, you're going to give yourself a 2 hour block to just do the really hard task of the day. You know what? It's going to be hard to get deeply focused. The research out of Stanford indicates that when people multitask a lot, even when we give ourselves permission and time to go deep, we can't do it. We stay at the surface and we're easily
Oh,
distracted.
interesting. It's very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So you're doing yourself a disservice. You're reducing your productivity later. So what I suggest is like make your motto, get proud about single tasking. And it's hard. But
Mm,
what I do now is I'll often set a timer on my desk. If I find that I'm multitasking too much, I'll set a timer and say, I'm just going to work on this project for 20 minutes. Set the timer, and I'm religious about it. We're searching for a house right now, and I promise myself I won't look at Zillow at all for this 20 minutes. I won't respond to any texts or anything that I get over my computer. And usually when that alarm goes off in 20 minutes, I'm so deep into my task, I just ignore it and I keep going with
oh,
it.
great. Yes.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really works. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, some people are going to tell us if you have kids running around, you're going to be pulled off that task
Yes.
just by reason of the role you play in the family. But that means at some point you have to cordon off a place, a time when the kids are busy doing something else, or the kids are at school or whatever, or in an office when other people are not buzzing around you. But
Yes.
once you know the difference in the quality when you can have that total focus on whether you're, doing something financial or whether you're writing another paper, it really, you know that feeling. And then you can
Yes.
go back to it. You can go back
Yes.
to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're so right. Family can be the tug that's hard to ignore, and I think it depends on the age. If you have kids, of the age of the kids, with younger kids, it's harder to negotiate.
Mm.
But with older kids, you can say, "I want to give you my complete attention because what you're saying is so important. Give me 5, 6 minutes to finish this email," and then you close your laptop and you say, "I'm all yours."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
it makes me think of it in terms of my grandchildren, that they also benefit and enjoy if they're doing Legos and that's
Mm,
all they're doing. Everybody's
yes.
quietly doing a Lego. Everyone's into it and everyone's doing very well. Once we've got songs and dance and TV and that's
Mm.
it. That's it. You can see the difference. It's gigantic.
That's such a great insight. And I wonder if it would be helpful to point that out. Remember how this morning you were really deep into your Legos? That's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to get deep into something, right? To just
Yeah,
help them
yes.
recall, like, yeah, that was fun, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they see how they accomplish it. It's the difference
Exactly.
is dramatic. So now
Yeah.
as we're talking about working and morning and whatever, let's talk about this coffee tea deal.
Mm,
Because this is so interesting.
it is. So what's really interesting about coffee versus tea, both, at least black tea, green tea, white tea, they contain caffeine, as does your regular coffee. But and caffeine helps with to some degree with focus. It basically can, if you're feeling tired, it will give you energy and reduce drowsiness, which drowsiness is often a reason we find it hard to focus. But what tea has a bonus, and that is something called L-theanine. It's an amino acid that's present naturally in tea, and it basically turns up your dial on focus. So when you drink tea in as opposed to coffee, you're going to find that your focus is much better than it would be on a morning when you just drink coffee. And this has been, I hear back from people about what tip they took from the book that they're finding most useful, and it's often the tea tip.
Oh,
They're like,
really?
it
Really?
is. In fact, and one guy wrote to me recently and said he's adding tea to his coffee, which I don't think sounds very tasty, but he's trying to get the benefits of the tea, but he's still, he's
A
weaning
coffee
himself off.
drinker, yeah.
He's a coffee drinker. He likes the taste of the coffee. But anyway, that L-theanine will improve your ability to get deep into focus. It also will take away the jitters. So if you're someone who's finding that coffee, you like it for the focusing effect, but it gives you jitters, the L-theanine and tea won't have that effect. And so
Oh,
are you a tea drinker? I am, but are you?
oh, I'm a tea drinker always from the time I'm a little girl. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And to the point where I think I get over focused.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I think I mentioned we were in college. My sister was trying to get my attention. We're in a class, psych class. I'm staring and taking notes at the professor. Everyone in the class is turned to her at the door, at the window in the door of the college classroom, and she's this beautiful young woman. The young men are waving to her. I have not taken my eyes off the professor until he turns, and I see my sister at the door
Wow.
motioning to me that I had the car key. So, but I mean, so I think I was, that was my drink of choice always and still is.
Mm, mm.
So, no, I'm not exactly sure. It means that I sort of OD on it, but maybe I don't know. But it definitely is a focus helper.
It is. It really
Yes,
is.
much as coffees really get you going. I love coffee in the morning, and there's not a police show across, whether it's in Ireland or whether it's in England, everybody's holding cups of coffee. When
Oh,
they
it's so
when
true.
they when
Yeah.
they have to find out who the killer is, someone comes in with coffee. It's remarkable. The
It
entire
is.
world drinks coffee.
Drinks coffee.
In Ireland, a bit more tea. I think a bit more
Yeah.
tea. But I think
Well,
I've never seen it discussed as it is in your book.
Well, and so, going back to multitasking, we've already talked about the evils of multitasking, but let's say you're in that situation where you know it's going to be a day of multitasking because you've got childcare that day, or because it's going to be a day where people are interrupting you at work. Go for tea, because what the research is really clear on is that tea improves multitasking, meaning that if you've got a main task and you're pulled out of it, if you're drinking tea, it'll be way easier to get back into your main task
Oh,
more
okay.
quickly and with fewer
Interesting.
errors. So tea has other benefits. So if multitasking is a reality for you on a given day, pivot to tea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, another big question with people is once they start aging,
Mm.
and even earlier, how do they remember people's names, Therese? What do we know? What can we help with that?
It's such a hard one.
It
And it's just,
is. I'm
you know,
ridiculous.
it is, and it's a social liability, right? Because you see someone and you see them again later and they remember your name and you don't remember
Oh,
theirs. And
yeah. Or if it's at a
yeah.
conference and it's like they just told you their name. How ridiculous can this be?
Exactly. We just got on the elevator. They said their name. Why can't, we haven't gotten off the elevator yet. Right.
Keep hoping they'll mention their own name, which they're not going to do. It's
Exactly.
ridiculous.
Or are they going to have a name tag that you can,
You hope.
steal a glance at? Okay, so some great tips there. So first of all, if you know you're going to be in a situation where you're going to want to learn names, maybe you're going to a party at work or your spouse's work and you're going to meet a bunch of people and it's going to look good for me or my partner if I remember these names. Or like you said, you're at a conference and you're about to go downstairs and you're going to meet a bunch, you're in your hotel room and you're going to go meet a bunch of people. The thing that you can do ahead of time, this is a big surprise to me, I didn't know this, is do a 10-minute mindfulness meditation. You can find those online, but the research is clear on this that doing just 10 minutes mindfulness meditation will improve your ability to learn and recall new information by 75%.
Whoa.
You don't find that very often in psychology.
No,
Now, that's on
that's
average.
wild.
Some people will
Yeah,
be even better, some will be
yeah,
less, but
yeah,
that's a
yeah,
huge improvement.
yeah.
So before walk into that party, or before you go down the elevator to the conference, do a 10-minute mindfulness meditation. You can find them online. My favorite app right now is called Healthy Minds, but there's so many good ones out there that you can find a great mindfulness, or even just YouTube, find a 10-minute mindfulness meditation, and your ability to remember those names will go up.
It's almost like you clear the space.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Wow, that's
Yeah.
great to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it also improves your ability to focus, because let's take that example. If you meet someone at a conference and they say their name and your attention was, you thought it was on them, but really it was on everything else in the room, right? You were looking for that one
Yes.
person that you know is supposed to be there and you're going to meet up with them in 10 minutes. So you're scanning the room for them. Or when they said their name, you were also thinking about, like, oh, wait a second, I got to set my drink down to shake their hand. Where do I set my drink down? Or whatever it might be, right? And so you're distracted. And I think one of the things the mindfulness meditation does is it improves your ability to focus on what they're saying and be less distracted.
Now, in the book, do you say this that if you can use the new information in some way, like if someone shows me a way to do something online, if I don't then do it myself right away, and maybe
Yes.
again, I don't have it. So sometimes if you use it and say, oh, Holly, oh, my best friend's name is Holly. Oh, I love that name. You have already made some sort of memory for yourself with it.
Yes. So you've done a really nice thing there, Suzanne, and that is, so what you want to do is test yourself, right? And so people will often say, should I say that person's name out loud again? Probably not right after they said it. So if they said, hi, I'm Holly, and you say, hi, Holly, like, that's not going to help you. What you need to do is test yourself. So letting maybe 3 minutes pass, or 20 seconds, or just a little bit of time, and then say something like, you know what? Holly is one of my favorite names. I didn't want to say that right away because it sounded weird, but like my best friend when I was
Yeah.
growing up was Holly. That's testing yourself, right?
Ah,
So
good.
just let a little bit of a gap. Or what I now try to do is I try to introduce that person to someone else,
Ah,
right? And
that's
they'll
a
say
good one.
that's a nice one because you're also perhaps going to say, hey, by the way, Holly, have you met Jonathan over here? I think the two of you're both from Oklahoma, right? Or whatever it might be. And so you're getting a
That's good.
chance to, and the research is clear on this. It's when we have to retrieve information, we reinforce the connection. It's kind of like going to a library and pulling a book off a shelf. Next time you go to find the book, you'll remember it better because you pulled it off once.
Ah, wow. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Really good. Yeah. Okay. Oh, here. Let's talk about boosting creativity,
Mm.
Therese. So what do you have some interesting suggestions for that one?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it helps to realize, even if you're not a painter or a writer or someone that we think of as having a traditional creative profession, many of us have to be creative all the time, right? We are trying to come up with something to make for dinner that we can do in 30 minutes without going to the grocery store, or spending, a lot of time doing takeout, right? Or we're being creative at work. We're trying to find a loophole in something, right? There's so many ways that we have to be creative, and a couple of different things. So, first of all, we don't understand the brain science behind this, but one thing that researchers find again and again is having some kind of plant or flower nearby. So, in fact, I even have right here an orchid on my desk.
Okay.
um,
Yes.
because the research indicates if you can see, it needs to be something you can see very easily. If you have a plant or a flower that you can see easily, that
Mhm.
seems to improve creativity. We don't understand the brain science behind that yet, but we know the
That's
research is
great.
there. So that's
Yeah.
an easy one, right? So if it's in
Yes.
your kitchen, have plants in your kitchen. If it's at your
Yeah.
desk, have
Yeah.
plants at your desk. So that's a nice one. Another one is a very short walk. Marilee Opezzo at Stanford has found that as brief as 1/5 of a mile, so if you do if you can walk in 1 mile in 20 minutes, this is basically a 4-minute walk. So getting
Yeah.
outside, doing a quick 4-minute walk, will increase your creativity when you sit back down at your desk. So if you're someone who needs, you're drawing a blank and you need to come up with some creative ideas, step outside of your building, be outside for 5 minutes and then immediately sit back down, and there's a good chance. Don't listen to a podcast, right? This isn't the
Mhm.
time to catch up
Right.
on your favorite episode of
Right.
Suzanne's show. This is
Right.
a time to just be looking at nature, looking around, taking some deep breaths when you sit back down, and immediately get back to work. Don't check email, don't check social media. There's a very good chance you will have some new creative ideas when you sit back down.
It's great. And I wonder if it's funny when I'm running, I'm always sort of impressed by mothers walking with a school-age child with them. And they're
Mm.
talking, and sometimes they're not talking. They're just walking together. It could be one mother in particular. I've seen her walk now. He started out very little, this guy, and now he's must be junior high. But I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on working moms, like in addition to their job, they may be lawyers, they may be teachers, they've got to figure out a birthday party, they're coaching a team. So
Mhm.
sometimes that walk is a chance to be one-on-one with one of their children, or sometimes just
Mm.
themselves. And if they're looking, and now that you've given us this kind of additional bonus that walking, just take the walk, and the idea of what the birthday party has to be, or whatever you are in charge of, in terms of the parent association, without even trying to do it, just get that break in. And it's funny how sometimes children want to join you, which is wonderful.
It is.
Yeah.
And you could make it in order to tune into your environment. If you are walking with one of your children, you could say, let's make this an adventure walk. We're each going to look for 3 things we haven't noticed in the neighborhood before,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
so now you're both on the lookout. You're actually scanning the
Yes.
environment, right? And so that way it's still quality time with your child. You're not ignoring them, but they're engaged with you in like, oh, what do I see?
Yes.
Oh, so and so has their trash bins out a day early or whatever it might be, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the beauty of the book, is that you have the science behind things that we take for granted that
Mm.
are actually incredibly powerful. Very powerful.
Yes, I think what I'm finding useful in the research is to find out, what are the parameters, right? So I think for many of us, we don't want to do meditation because we feel we need to carve out a 30-minute block, or we think that in order for a walk to be restorative, we have to go to a park and drive there and then walk for 20 minutes. Instead, just to walk in your neighborhood, right? And
Yeah.
within the study at Stanford, they just had students walk around campus. So,
Yeah.
so, so short walks and short meditations, there can be these huge benefits, and it doesn't have to inconvenience you.
In fact, when they are easily accessible, they're going to happen. Because if you're going to get in the car and go to the track you're not going.
You're not
You're not
going.
going. It's not happening. But
So
if you can
true.
walk out of your driveway onto the street and start walking, you're good. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And people would tell me that one person had a really hard time walking, and she was so grateful to a group of women. When they passed her house, they knocked on the door and they said, "We'll wait till you get your sneakers on." She would never have gone if they didn't, if that
Oh,
knock wasn't there. So sometimes you
yeah.
pass, it's like passing forward the gift. It's just so
Yes.
special. Yeah,
I
yeah,
really
it's
like
very
that. And
positive.
what's nice about walking with another person, right? It has to be planned, which maybe, or it's going to be longer because
Yeah.
there are two of you, but there's a social component to that, right? You're chatting with someone as opposed to just
Hmm.
going in your head. And in terms of, we talked briefly about memory earlier, and one of the things that boosts memory is when there's both a physical component, you're moving, and there's a social component.
Wow.
Yep. So combining those two, going for a walk with a friend is going to help boost your memory better than going for a walk by yourself.
Oh, sounds good. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back. You've been listening to Psych Up Live, and today we're so fortunate to have returning to us cognitive scientist Therese Huston, who's drawing upon her new and powerful little book, Sharp, 14 Simple Ways to Improve Your Life with Brain Science. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Psych Up Live, and we're here with Therese Huston, and she's talking about her powerful little book, Sharp. And we've been using concepts, researched concepts from her book, exemplifying them, and we're going to continue to do that. We have a really good one coming up right now, and that is if I could see you all, I'd say how many would raise their hand and say they have stress every day? I think all of us would raise our hands. You can't live in this culture without reading the paper even and getting stressed. So, Therese, tell us a little bit about how we could handle stress.
You're so right, Suzanne. Stress is an everyday part of life, and there might be pockets where we have less stress, and then there are pockets where we are deep in stress. So I think it's really important to have some strategies that are easy to do that can help reduce stress. Besides, taking that 2 week vacation in the summer, or there are big ways you can take stress, but we need little everyday tools. And so, if it would be all right with you, I'd love to demonstrate a breathing exercise that you can do in many contexts, and it will immediately help reduce your stress. And this one's well demonstrated and I can explain the science when we're done. But would you be game to try this demo?
Sure.
Okay, great. So first of all, right now, Suzanne, if you wouldn't mind rating your stress on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is you're so unstressed you could fall asleep, and 10 is this is peak stress levels for you. What would you say in this moment?
In the moment, I'd say 5.
5. Okay, fair. Yep, good.
Okay.
Probably for me too, 5 or 6. Okay, so the activity, I'll describe it first and then we'll do it. So I am going to have you exhale all of your air in just a moment. And when I tell you to do that, you'll exhale your air. Then I'm going to have you inhale for a count of 5, which is a very slow inhale, hold for a count of 2, and then exhale for a count of 7, which is also a slow exhale. Now, Suzanne, if you find yourself on the inhale, if you get to like 3 and you're like, Therese, I can't inhale anymore, that's fine. Just start holding
Okay.
your breath early. That's no
Okay.
problem. What's more important is that super long, slow exhale. So you might do it through pursed lips, like you're blowing out of a straw, or you can just exhale through your nose, but just do it for 7. That's the real stress reliever is
The
that slow
exhale.
exhale, the slow
Yes.
exhale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So exhale all of your air and inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 2. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again. Inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold 2. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so let's go back to that scale of 1 to 10. How's your stress now?
Um, Maybe 3.
Nice. Oh, nice. Oh, that's
Okay.
great. Yeah,
Yes.
good.
Yes.
Yeah. And so this is a great little tool. What it does from the science perspective is that really slow exhale, particularly if you do it through pursed lips, activates your vagus nerve, which runs from your brain down your along your carotid artery into your lungs and your stomach. And it also runs back up in the same pathway. And so one of the things you can do is control it through your breath and by having activation in your throat. And when the vagus nerve is activated in the way that we just did with that really slow exhale, it sends a signal to the amygdala that there's no threat, it's all okay. It actually activates the prefrontal cortex, which is going to make your thinking clear. The research indicates that will improve decision making, that 5-2-7 breath. So it's a wonderful tool to have because you can do it when you're having dinner with your in-laws. You're feeling and you're starting to be triggered by something that someone at the table said, or you could do it at work when you're meeting with your manager and your manager has said some things that are upsetting to you. You can do this really slow exhale and it will help your body reset. It's kind of a way to hijack your system in a really
Yeah.
good way. Yeah.
Well, we have had a guest on speaking about awe, and he has combined awe, which is, you made the perfect pancake. You do the breathing in and you
Yes.
do the exhale. And
Yeah.
so he says, grab these moments that capture you and
Mhm.
use them to remember to do what you just had me do,
Oh,
which is
nice.
keep breathing in. And the main thing being, the thing we didn't know so much is
Mm.
the powerful importance of that exhale.
Yes, I love the idea of the perfect pancake. Because we don't often notice or we just brush by
Yes,
these moments
yes,
of awe, right?
moments of awe. Yeah, yeah,
We
it's
we
so
think
true. And that's
it
true
is.
when you're walking.
Yeah.
to see a grasshopper sitting side by side with a bee on a leaf, whatever, those kind of things.
Yes.
But if you can then harness the breathing, you
Mhm.
have a double hit. It's really good.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
reason that I asked you to notice your stress levels before and after wasn't to underline, oh, look how amazing this technique
Yes.
is, but because if we can directly pay attention and experience, like, oh, my stress levels did come down a little bit, or they came down a lot, we're more likely to do it again because we've observed for ourselves. We've done the introspection to notice that actually really did help. And so we're more likely to turn to it again and not just trust, oh, Therese said it would work, but you'll know that it does because you
Well,
tried it.
well, add to that, sometimes when you're so harried, and working mothers are, this is so true, they think, I can't even think straight. If that's the point where they think, okay, how stressed am I
Mm-hmm.
on 1 to 10? And if
Yeah.
at that moment they could say, okay, let me just do a bit of breathing, rather than remaining in a harried kind of panic state, grab it and grab this mini little exercise.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also nice because you'll stop the rumination
Yes.
because so often, right? I'm sure you talk about this a lot. We get into a thinking pattern where we're just, well, no wonder I'm mad because this happened, or no wonder I'm stressed. It's totally justified. And we just, fan the flames.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Now, related to stress, we were talking at the break, is the problem of procrastination
Mm,
fueled by fear of making a mistake or
mm,
fear of needing things to be perfect. And if they're
mm.
not perfect, that means that they're totally terrible. No in
Yeah,
between.
yeah, yeah.
So how do we deal with that?
Yeah, it's a real challenge, and for me, perfectionism is definitely one of my demons. So I'm right with you there. So it's really interesting. One of the well, a huge area of research led by Carol Dweck out of Stanford, but lots of other researchers have adopted this as well, is the discovery that one of the things that can help reduce mistakes, and at least help, first of all, help us accept mistakes when we make them, but also then reduce mistakes in the future so that we are less worried about getting it right, is to change your mindset and to adopt what's known as a growth mindset. So there's Carol Dweck and others distinguish between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So a
Okay.
fixed mindset is the belief that I'm either good or bad at something. I'm good at music or I'm terrible. I have I'm tone deaf, right? Or to believe I'm good at math or bad at math. That's a really common one in the U.S. is to believe that math is, my family's either good at math and no wonder I am, or my family's bad at math and so I am. That's a fixed mindset. And in contrast, there's a growth mindset, which is I could get better at math if I tried, or I could pick up an instrument. I'm in my 50s. It might be a little harder than if I were in my teens, but you're right. I can learn. I
Right.
can learn to play music, right? Just like I learn a new language or whatever it might be. So this idea of growth mindset versus fixed mindset, what's really fascinating about it is in the neuroscience research on this, what they find is when people make a mistake, one of the things that happens to all of us is we have kind of an oh no moment where we're like, oh no, what did I just do? I made a big mistake. No
Right.
matter what kind of mindset you have, your nervous system has that like that catch, right? They're like, oh no, I made a mistake. But people with a growth mindset, what happens if you believe I can get better with practice? They suddenly become more their attention goes up, their ability to focus on the outside world increases, and as a result, they're likely to make fewer mistakes because they're now trying to learn, like, how do I avoid that mistake in the future?
Mm,
Which makes sense because you believe you can learn, right? You believe like, oh, I got that calculus problem wrong. Let's see. Okay, what did I miss, right? What do I need to know that I don't know? Whereas if you have a fixed mindset, the what the nervous system does after that oh no moment is it's immediately trying to justify, like, well, no wonder I made the mistake. It's this reason, right? You get into an excuse mode or a cover up mode. I don't want anyone to notice that I made a mistake on Zoom, and so, right, how do I cover up the mistake I made in that meeting,
yeah, yeah.
right? And so and as a result, people with a fixed mindset make more mistakes because they're not
Mm.
taking in the information of how to improve. So one of the things, and I'm actually working with this on my mom, she has a really fixed mindset about technology. She assumes she will always be bad at technology. So she's read my book and she's now trying to change her mindset and
Really? Yeah.
have a growth mindset about technology because she'll
Uh-huh.
make fewer mistakes because when she does make a mistake on her computer, instead of saying, "Oh no, I can't do this, I have to call my son-in-law," she'll be like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I wonder what I did there."
Ah.
Right? And
So
so she,
it's a difference between blame and curiosity.
yes,
Yeah.
perfectly
Yeah.
said. Blame
Yeah.
versus curiosity. So if you can
Mm.
if you can catch yourself like, oh, I'm falling into that fixed mindset that I have about blank, because we don't, it's not that a person only has a fixed mindset about everything in their life. You might have a growth mindset like, of course, I can learn about new cultures when I travel, and I can learn some
Yeah.
new language phrases when I travel. So you might
Right.
have a growth mindset about travel and languages, but a fixed mindset about, we've given the technology example, or math, or music, or about public speaking. Some people are like, nope,
Mm.
just, yeah, I can never get up in front of a crowd. I'm always going to be bad at that.
Well, some people say I can't bake.
Oh, wait.
If you could read, you could bake. But there were so many wonderful bakers in the family. Who am I to bake?
Right.
So it's a really important point about the growth mindset because it opens doors up at any age if you're willing to look.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. If you have that curiosity and if you're gentle with yourself, if you can be compassionate, like, oh, I made a mistake. I wonder what I can learn from that, as opposed to, oh, I made a mistake. I should never bake again. Right.
Right, right. That's exactly true. That's
Yeah.
exactly true. Okay. So let's see.
And you'll catch it with some people. You can it's easier to hear in other people, right? So in fact, baking is an excellent example. I have one family member where when she will cook and the meal just doesn't quite work out right? Instead of being like, huh, I followed the recipe. This is kind of surprising. I wonder, maybe I just didn't add enough lemon juice. I don't know. Instead of having that curiosity, she'll say things like, see, I told you we should have gotten takeout. Right? She just immediately draw, and I
Okay.
think part of it is then she gets compliments like, it's not that bad, right? So I think part of it makes her,
Well, it's a whole dynamic that
it's a whole
obviously goes
dynamic.
on with that. Okay. So here's one that I loved that you talked about in your To Accomplish More toolkit,
Mhm.
picturing the process goal by goal, step by step. And so we were talking about young people applying to graduate school or
Mhm.
applying for a job or switching
Sure.
careers. So talk a little bit about what would help a person drop the fear and maybe start goal by goal or step by step to kind of shift a life career,
Mhm.
a breakup with someone who they know is not really suited for them. So when you say goal by goal, step by step, exemplify that if you would.
Sure. So I think they're a really common thing that you'll hear either on podcasts or just in kind of self-help literature is, just picture how good it's going to feel when it's all done, or just or feel what it's going to feel like to get all those applications for grad school in, or getting those essays done, or whatever it might be. Picture being on the other side. And what research shows is that in that moment, it will make you feel better. It'll make you feel momentarily more motivated. But what research also shows is that over the course of the next week, you won't actually do as much that week
I
as you
believe it.
perhaps did. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you've already had the good feeling, right? So it's really interesting. You've rewarded yourself like, oh, that would feel so good. But now you've lost some of the motivation, right? Ironically enough. Whereas what they find is when people picture the process, so instead of picturing what it will be like on the other side when it's all done, picture like, okay, I've got to write that hard essay and get those applications in. All right, so what will it look like this afternoon? I will open up my computer. I will close my, whatever applications are going to distract me. I'm going to set the essay down on my right. I'm going to set a notepad down on my left. And I'm going to I'm going to set a timer. I'm going to work for 30 minutes on the first essay, and it will be to this school. So picturing in detail all the way to like, I'm going to shut my laptop at the end and I'll go downstairs and I'll make myself a smoothie, whatever it might be, right? You
Yeah,
picture
yeah,
all
yeah.
these, yep. And
It's
research
perfect.
shows you activate 5 times more brain areas when you picture the
Wow.
process. So
Wow.
huge, right? Also, you're more likely to get more done in the next week because you've picked that day, but even over the next week by picturing all those specific steps, you're more likely to accomplish hard goals that you're not getting done. So you're more likely to tackle the big things. So it also, and I think one of the really interesting things is it activates an area called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Long name, but basically it's like the angel on your shoulder. You know, in some movies you'll have the devil on
Yeah,
one shoulder and the angel on
yeah,
the other. Your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, particularly on the right side, is an area that gets activated when you picture the process. And it's like that little angel that's like whispering in your ear, you should really do this. And it gets you to do
yeah,
it, right?
yes.
It's persuasive. And so by picturing the process, you activate this brain area that's the angel on your shoulder. It will get you to do the thing that you've been putting off, and not through guilt, but just through a conviction, like, I know I don't want to, but I really should, so I'm going to do it.
It's terrific. And I'm glad to hear there's actually, a neurophysiological process
Yeah.
that's going to help you with it. I've used the expression with people, just break the cellophane, break the cellophane and start writing. It doesn't have to be perfect, just start it. But I really like adding to that the steps.
Yeah.
Because if you then think, okay, I'm going to start writing, then
Mhm.
I'm going to look up some references, and
Yep.
then I'm going to read it back. Then I'm just going to work on the section on this.
Yes.
So what it does, rather than, as you say, focus on the reward, is make the trail workable.
Oh, nicely said. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because so often we're just picturing it such an impossible uphill climb. Why even start?
right,
Right.
right.
Whereas if you've pictured the trail in detail, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, I need better shoes, but I've got those in the closet. I just, right? You picture what you're going to need to get over those obstacles. And I
Yes.
like that. It's a good analogy.
Sometimes I've gone back to something I've written late at night because I just wanted to get it done, and I think,
Mhm.
oh, that's not bad.
So
So you
true.
just you just have to let yourself take the risk of that climb,
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and now that we're hearing from you, this is a neurological process. So
Yes.
you've got that on your side if you can do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I first read the literature, when I heard about the 5 times more brain areas, I was thinking, oh, this is just because picturing steps involves a lot of memory of, like, what have the steps been in the past, and the creativity and the imagination of picturing the steps when I do them in the future. But it's more than that. This dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is really like a taskmaster, right? So you're, in addition to having memory and creativity and imagination activated, you're also getting the brain area that is like, you have to do this. I know you don't want to, but this is the important thing that's going to get you where you want to go. So it's like hiring a guide on that hard trail basically, but you got it internally. You've got it, that brain area is already there, and if it's not being activated, this is your key to get there.
This it also confronts the need for it to be perfect when you put
Mm.
that pen to the paper. If you can get past that, it's going to be perfect. And instead, it's just going to be, you're going to just start working or walking. You can't walk the Pacific Ridge perfectly, but if you just
Right.
start walking, you're going to get through it, maybe. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's that perfection piece. I need an essay that gets me into Harvard. No,
Mm.
you just need the essay. Let's just do the essay. And
Yeah.
then the momentum builds, because then when you go back to what you wrote, it's like, oh, I thought of that. Okay. And then,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I love what you observed about how sometimes you go back to something you wrote before bed, and you read it and with fresh eyes, and you're like, oh, that's better than I realized. It's so much easier to start with a draft. It's so much,
Yes.
right? Rather than a blank piece of paper, which so many of us can feel paralyzed by.
Right,
Uh,
right.
you know, writer's block is a real thing. So having some words on a page, you can now be like, oh, 50% of that I'm not going to use, but I can, beautifully delete that or save it for something else,
Hmm.
and just work with those 3 paragraphs. What I often do with my writing, I like to print things out. So I'll, after I've drafted something, I'll print it out and I'll go back through, and each paragraph gets a letter grade. And the A's are the things I'm going to keep, and the B's are like, I could rework that, and a C is like, cut it, or a D is like, oh my gosh, never show that to anyone. Right? But that
That's
helps me.
hilarious.
It helps me see that, like, there was some A work in there, not the whole thing, but that one paragraph, there is something beautiful there that I want to go back to. So that can
Th-
be a nice way to help yourself.
This fits into, and you probably have a better term for this, We have some international students who so much want to come here to study.
Mhm.
And what we've said in groups with them is just apply. As soon as you apply, you're going to learn something about the whole application process. And
Yes.
so we're going to apply so you get on the trail. And because we can tell you they wanted this, they wanted that, but once you do it, and you see what the response is, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to help you call people and ask, what did I do right? Right. So if you get into the game any way you can, you're
Mm.
going to end up at a final point. But the obsessing about, no, they would never take me anyway. I don't have a perfect this. I don't have,
Oh,
leaves you
yeah.
outside the gate.
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
I sometimes will tell myself that, well, am I going to get it if I don't try? Absolutely not.
Right.
Right. But if I do try, my chances go up a little bit. Certainly
Yes.
they move up from zero, right?
Well, you
So
become an informed contestant at least, right?
yes. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well said.
Right.
Yeah. So that,
Yeah.
and I think there's something huge about practice. And I'm reading a novel right now, and one of the nice phrases that I've now adopted as a mantra is, it's going to be all right in the end. If it's not all right yet, it's not the end.
That's true.
And
That's
I
good.
love I love
Yeah,
that. And
I
and
love it
if
too.
it fits into this idea of, you got to try, because that's going to help me move in the direction I want to go. And if it's not all right yet, that means we're not done.
Okay. So, well, we're just about at the end of this wonderful conversation. What take-home message would you give our listeners, Therese?
I think for me, I'm in my mid 50s now, and I think one of the things that I find most refreshing about doing the research for this book and writing is, your best brain days are not behind you. Whatever age you are, you can add more neurons, you can add new connections, you can get smarter, you can get sharper as you age. I think so often we just assume my best brain days, I was my sharpest in my 20s, and
Right.
that's in the rear view mirror. But that's not the case. They find that people can add new neurons in their 70s, in their 80s. And so that would be my takeaway, is your best brain days are still ahead of you if you just take some extra steps. And they don't have to be hard steps. A lot of the things in the book are 5 minutes or less. So start with that breathing exercise, help get your body regulated, and then you can look for some other great strategies to have your best brain day ahead of you.
Great. Now, where can they get this very appropriately named book, Sharp?
Thank you.
Where? So,
Yeah. So it's published with Mayo Clinic Press. So if you like to go to a publisher's website, but I'm a big fan of online bookstores. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I just had a friend pick up 2 copies at a brick and mortar Barnes and
okay,
Noble. So
good.
lots of places.
Okay. I want to thank you for coming on. You're a return guest, and we have a wonderful time, and our listeners get so much from you, Therese. Thanks again for joining me on Psych Up Live.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. It's been a real treat.
Remember, you can hear this or any prior show as a podcast on my host site, website, on the podcast app of your iPhone, on all the podcast platforms. Remember to drop me a comment or a question at suephil@optonline.net. Until next week, please be safe, thanks, and be listening.